Yeah. Abhishek, can you hear me now? We haven't started yet, so I'm still waiting for our participant to join. Let me know if you can hear me or not. All right, cool. Thank you. Yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes before we start. Let me see where our presenter is today.
Hey, Anil.
Hey, Judah.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you? We're live right now. So
What's that?
We are live right now.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And you are here, audience is here. I'm going to give another minute, but you and I can talk about just how this is going to work. So I am already live on YouTube. I'll make you host and you can go do your presentation once we get started. Sounds good?
Yeah, that sounds good. I've got a lot of presentations to go through if we want. I figured we could have a little bit of a casual conversation to start it off, right? Because you've got such a long-term experience in analytics and, just been around as, like I say, one of the original gangsters, right? One of the OGs. So,
yeah.
What can I tell you? Like, what are some of the questions you have for me?
Yeah, so let's start with this one. I'm gonna introduce you to the audience here. So hi, welcome everybody to Optizent Academy live training sessions. We conduct these sessions every Thursday, so where you learn something new in digital marketing and analytics, as well as hear from experts like Judah, who has been in the industry for 15 plus or more than that. I know him from
20. Oh my goodness, what year is it? 23 years or something like that.
Yeah,
beyond my COVID beard and the gray denoting that, right?
Exactly.
I look probably 23 years younger when I shave it.
Well.
But yeah, long time. When search was actually called information retrieval, and when I told it to people, they thought I was talking about the Robert De Niro movie. Called Brazil, if you guys have not seen it. It's a great movie from the 80s with De Niro where he's in a chase by a group called Information Retrieval.
See all your 80s movies I watched in 90s. Because it was very hard to find movies back in India back then. They were like not even TV at that point. Or
and I love Bollywood, and especially the music of Kishore Kumar and all the different languages he sings in.
You said Kishore Kumar?
I love Kishore Kumar, yeah.
Yes, especially my favorite.
The more polyrhythmic stuff that he gets into, and it's really enchanting, especially over some very spicy food.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we have to do that session then. We have to
I like
have
that. We'll do
spicy
that
food
session.
and Kishore Kumar music. I'm sure a bunch of people audience
When
are
I
going to
started
jump in.
doing stuff with the internet, right, there was no Google. I worked at a company that was indexing the web, and I used to use this company called Northern Light Search, right, because they clustered results into folders, and you could like get actual results. I remember when the engineers came to my office and said, "Look at what the guys at Stanford put out," and it was just this wicked simple big Google, and a little text box, and the results were just killer.
Oh yes,
from that moment, the search became a word. There was no paid search. There was no
paid search. I
didn't even
remember
call it
that.
SEO. We used to call it search engine ranking.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And we would do total black hat stuff, like stick the keywords in white at the bottom of the page, and boom.
I saw your LinkedIn post yesterday, or comment on somebody's post about talking about keyword stuffing.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, so that's my friend Ben Worthen, who is the CEO of a company called Message Lab, which is just a fantastic content shop, and much more than that, really, digital content experiences. Who's just doing great out there in Southern Mid California in San Francisco. And we used to collaborate like a long time ago, and he was one of the people who would like listen to me about what was going on with the internet and media and journalism at the time, when there was a lot of like church and state going on, meaning you couldn't, who are these digital people telling us to like, look at keywords, and the reality is I was talking to somebody back then who was also on that team, and it was like years ago, and he said to me, he's like, "You were 100% right back then," and the people wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen, but Ben listened, and that's and I'm so proud of what he's accomplished. Cool. So he's also just a great guy, and I helped them with their data strategy and kind of putting together an event layer and being able to collect some meaningful data that they could then present as part of the a content engagement output, right? So cool stuff. And even eBay did not exist. I remember going to auction web. Like this was so long ago, early internet days.
Oh, remember half.com or something like that before eBay?
I think it was auction web. I used to use Ubid. Remember Ubid?
Ubid, yes.
Ubid was fantastic. I got this great JBL European set of tweeters, and it was just great. The early web, right? The early unrestricted web. So the Punch the Monkey banner. Remember the Punch the Monkey banner?
Oh, yes.
Literally, a little monkey. Punch the monkey.
Punch the monkey. I know. Remember there were a bunch of those floating around at that time.
Myra Gwynch and the ice.com guys with their free diamond or the free pearl necklace. It's all the early days stuff. I mean, even worked one time, actually with Ben, we worked with a guy, David Sherbuck. He's just quite a STEM winder and a super intelligent guy. Created Forbes.com. Right, it's my boss. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been doing this stuff forever, Anil.
Yes.
And I was an entrepreneur then, right? I had my own consultancy, and then I did a stint in big brands, right? Whether that's Reed Elsevier or analyzing the effect of Super Bowl ads for Monster Worldwide. And then eventually in 2012, I went off and said, you know what? I'm going to listen to Jim Stern, our friend Jim Stern, who I have a ton of respect for. I'm going to go and write some books, and I'm going to go sell some very expensive consulting. And that's what I did. And I did really well with it. And then I realized, as I'm doing all this consulting, this data strategy for the biggest companies in the world, companies you guys drive, stores you go to, places and companies that you are aware of that I can't mention, which you probably find out if you ask around. I started to realize that people were asking more and more about machine learning and AI. And at Monster, I had some responsibility for some time with the predictive analytics team, right?
Yeah.
It was not called predictive.
Is Monster still around?
Monster is still around. I think
that was the job board back then.
Created by a fellow UMass alum, Jeff Taylor, combined with the Online Career Center out in Indiana. And my friend Rick Wuerl, who brought me into Monster after my stint at a very large global publisher named Reed Elsevier. Reed Business was one of the early guys there. And so I took that over, and we had visual sciences.
Cool.
right? I had the largest web trends on-premises implementation in the world, right? It still had like net IQ tags. And when Rob Ciolis and Pastana created Observe Point, or when Josh created Inciton, we had already built a tag manager and a pinger, but it was not like tag management. It wasn't like tag automation. But I remember talking to those guys in the early days. I remember sitting around the table at Gary Angel's Exchange with Ali Benham and Olivier Silvestri.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Right? Remember hanging out with my friend Matt.
Before it was the tag management company, right? Those guys were dabbling with a bunch of other stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And now our buddy Bob Page is running product there. So the only thing that's going to happen to them is they're going to get better, because Bob is running product. Bob created the first packet sniffer, guys, called a crew. There is actually a third modality in web analytics to collect data called packet sniffers.
Yep.
Appliances behind the firewall. You might see that with SiteSpect, our friend Eric Hansen's excellent A/B testing company that I recommend you guys check out. So it's been fun. And what I noticed, and I could still eat, I can still live doing internet stuff. It's amazing. And it's just grown phenomenally. Heck, my big miss was when I was at that information retrieval company. One of our advisors was advising Google and told me to apply for a job there. And I was like, Google?
What's that Google?
For, this? A big miss on my part, guys. We wouldn't be here today if that happened.
Yes, exactly. We wouldn't be here. And we won't be talking about machine learning and digital, right? So that's right. Tell us our story about like why it makes sense for digital analysts, digital marketers to get into or learn or do machine learning. Give us some idea. Like, what are your thoughts? Where can they apply this? A lot of audience that we have on this channel and people who are watching are basically in digital marketing, digital analytics. Mm-hmm. I always get this question. Machine learning. Well, I think I just need to just learn SQL. I do not know where everything else fits in. And there are people who are already looking into machine learning and AI. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, of course. So of course, learning SQL, learning SQL, right? Do it. Why not? It's sort of the lingua franca of query languages. I mean, and there's a lot of approaches to it, right? I mean, when people say SQL, they mean select statements, right?
Yeah.
They don't necessarily mean insert and update, but so select this from that where with some join conditions, right? It can get esoteric because of the names of tables and fields. You got to understand the keys and yada yada. But without a doubt, something to do. The reality is, though, that's very tactical, right? I don't think a business leader cares if you're getting your accounts with smoke signals and Morse code, right? They don't care about SQL.
Yes, exactly.
Like all these technology skills, nobody cares about but us, right? Who likes to talk about them and do them. What business people care about is two things, right? Profitable revenue or cost reduction, and that's it. So if you can tie your work to business ideas as opposed to just geeking out in the technology and thinking that's super important, you're going to be better off in your career, right? There's, SEMA right now is running around saying that, the technical marketers, right? Everybody's a technical marketer. If everybody's a technical marketer, nobody's a technical marketer. And the reality is, like, person running marketing at Squark doesn't need to know how to, monkey around in Google Tag Manager. It's just, that's very tactical, important stuff sometimes. But making money, right, means you have a job, right? So that's what you got to do in the business, and those skills can help you get there. So to answer your question, what I started to notice is that my clients, my consulting company, were asking me a lot about ML and machine learning. So I had this sort of background to some degree, managing for a period of time, predictive analytics team. So I kept getting asked about it, and I started to take a look into it. And I was like, oh, this is before data science. The term was around. Before data science, the term was around, right? We didn't call it data science. We had big data, right? And we called it big data. We said a lot of data. So all these terms sort of came about in circa 2012. I remember sitting in some conference in New York for Media Post and asking an audience of Madison Avenue sort of analysts and executives like, hey, how many data scientists in the room? And there's this one woman named Carla, who's truly a data scientist, who raised her hand. And now if you ask who's a data scientist in the room, you're going to get 1,000, hands that go up. So the reality is I started to look at data science and I was like, whoa, this is like way too esoteric for most people. Like they're not going to be able to wrap their heads around it.
Yep.
It's good. It's there's all these elephants in the way. It's complex. And you've kind of got to learn a lot before you can do anything. And one of the things you don't really have a lot in a business is time.
Yeah.
Right. And so I started to look at other technologies that I had seen grow over my career. So going back to those days in working with Robert Darnell in information retrieval, we were doing web analytics, but we had log files, right? This is the days of Matt Cutler's NetGenesis.
Yep, I started with the log files.
Yeah, Matt Cutler invented web analytics. Well, that's arguable, but I think Matt and the guy named Frank Faubert, right, at Sane Solutions, one of the early guy who actually figured out how to create sessions. Glenn Boyd, right, at Web Trends. These are all the early innovators there. So you had analog. And so we got to what's going on the website? Just getting some log files. All right. There was no IAB spiders and bots list, right? I started contributing to that in 2004 or 2006 or something like that. Like many people have done, because we indexed log files. So we would see the user agents of the spiders that would crawl the site. So you contribute those user agents. As you know, I got a little notorious for figuring out that the search me bot was the first JavaScript executing bot and taking Omniture to town on it, because Omniture said, oh, it generated server calls. It's a bot. You got to refund that. So anyway, going back to predictive analytics, there's a lot of stuff that went on. And I started to look at, the web analytics and the log files. And now what do you do, guys? You go get Google Analytics in the majority of cases, right? This is what people do, for better or for worse. It's a fine tool. You get what you pay for, right? You get what you pay for. Nice sample data. You get what you pay for. And so you can just get a tag and you can throw it in, your Weebly template, right? Or throw it in your GTM, and you get way better analytics than we were generating 20 years ago, right? Drill up, drill down, cross dimensions, filtering, segmentation, integration with this or that, right? It's all cool.
Yeah.
But predictive analytics seemed a lot like web analytics in the day. Then I was thinking all the BI stuff I've done, business intelligence, right? It's not an oxymoron. So the BI stuff, where you go and say, 2006, where I had to replace with actually Unica out of all looks like we lost you for a second there video wise. With Unica,
oh yeah, I turned my video off so that you can be the focus, not me coming in.
That's like I'm talking to your name. Okay, so going back, we ended up replacing some like BI, Java-based BI log file processing tool at this large company with Unica Net Insight, which was just such a killer tool. Eventually got bought by IBM, and somewhere existing in some other framework or Websphere or something like that.
Yeah,
and IBM.
Websphere. I worked with Websphere back then. IBM.
It's just such a killer tool, right? As a matter of fact, just not to go too much in history, we'll go on to predictive analytics in a second, guys. We've got a lot of time, and I haven't talked to Anil in a while. But the Gatineau, remember the first attempt at Microsoft to do web analytics? That came when Sane Solutions wouldn't sell to Microsoft, right? They sold to Unica instead. So, Gatineau was their second choice. And now they've got Clarity, which I'm super excited about, right? I love the rage metrics, right? I love the free session replay and stuff. But, when you go back to BI, we would go and get like data modelers. Like there's literally, like people do that. That's what they do. They model data, right? And you'd have to get that. And then you'd be like, all right, well, we need to physically implement, so we got to like build our tables. We got to, do the ETL. And keep in mind, this is the days before the cloud. So, you got your IT people saying, well, fiber, copper, how many spindles, right? And it was like, now what do? You go and get my friend Joshua James's company, Domo. Boom.
Yeah.
You're connecting, you're dragging and dropping. Maybe you're using some SQL, and you're building really cool visualizations in minutes. And it's better than Cognos. It's better, right, than traditional BI. I'm a big Domo fan. So I looked at BI and I said, BI has gone from this super complex thing to this like easy to do thing, right? Low code.
Yeah.
But predictive analytics, right? Still too hard. Machine learning, still too hard. So I was doing work, and I ran into my partner, and we sort of collaborated in the consulting business for a while. I got a little internet instability on my end here. All right, there it goes. And, eventually came up with this idea that we should democratize data science. This is about 4.5 years ago, right? And so we started to do this as kind of a passion project, sort of an endeavor, as we were doing some other stuff. And long story short is we worked with a lot of people and we figured out how to do what we do now. So the idea was that it should be as simple as simply uploading your data, clicking on something that you want to predict, and getting the resultant predictions without having to code. And so it wasn't called no code then, right? But I like to joke, and somebody was telling me, you can't say you invented no code predictive analytics. I said, it's controversial. I can say whatever I want, right? That's what somebody told me today. I don't mind saying it, right? Because I know we did. Now, did we invent everything? Like, do we look great because we stand on the shoulders of giants? Of course. Like, List was around, there was SAS around. As a matter of fact, that was the SAS team at Monster. I called it my pain in the SAS, because nobody could get any training for Enterprise Miner. It was way too expensive. It was too expensive for the resources, So I thought to myself, let's just create a simple way for like people who do not have the underlying technical knowledge, like meaning the programmatic or the algorithmic knowledge, to very quickly connect to their data, drag and drop their data in at least the most common analytical format that we get, which is Excel. And let's automate what a data scientist would normally do using code, but let's have an AI do ML, right? So that was really the genesis, and we started with unsupervised machine learning. So clustering of finance, we still got that, right? We don't kind of lead with that. And then we went into supervised.
Can you actually talk about more? What is unsupervised? What's supervised? Just a brief intro for them.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different like sort of things in machine learning or in AI. We used to just say ML and try not to say AI, but now we just say AI, whatever. So it's kind of academic, the difference. So when you look at machine learning, you can largely say, arguably, sorry, there's some road noise out in my suburban Boston neighborhood. I don't know what's going on, but there's like unsupervised learning, which is, these are algorithms that are task focused. You pass, say, the receipt ID and all the SKUs you bought in a grocery store, and an algorithm will then cluster them together and show you which sets of products co-occur together, right? I can show you some examples of that if we really want to get into it, but that we've built. It's in the new release, you guys will see some of this stuff, right? And we also use unsupervised in other ways in Squark, but unsupervised is like task-focused algorithms that do something. Maybe it's set co-occurrence or item co-occurrence. Like when people buy bread at the grocery store, do they also buy milk, or do they buy
what
apples,
other brands? So
right? And there's math, right, that can help you understand this.
And that is behind the recommendation engines.
It can, yes, it can be. So like when you're starting to do like an unsupervised analysis, you will look at, for market basket, you will look at support, confidence, and lift. So the frequency of the co-occurrence, the likelihood the co-occurrence will occur again, and then the rarity of the co-occurrence. And so you can start to really pinpoint, if I have, to say buy a gallon of orange juice, I'm going to give you free eggs or something like that. And then when you do say set co-occurrence, you can say, hey, if I have an end cap, I'm going to put on the front end cap this and these two other things. So supervised is sort of task focused, and it's an amazingly cool space, right? And there's a lot of innovation going on in unsupervised right now, as well as supervised. But it's real task focused, kind of algorithms that do things for you with the data that you push in, and they do what they do. Cluster, right? K means, right? Or K meteoroids, things like that. K nearest neighbor, right? Now, supervised machine learning is different. Supervised machine learning is kind of at the core of Spark, though there is, you can also say natural language processing is unsupervised, which is another true statement. Things like Word to Vec, BERT NLP, right? Or BERT from Google, unsupervised. OpenAI, you could argue, but I don't know enough about GPT-3. I still can't get a beta. So if anybody on there can get me a beta to GPT-3, that would be pretty cool. Supervised is where you're learning from historic labeled data, right? And that means like I have, say, customer records, and I'm a telecom, and I know some of my customers have churned in the past, right? Yeah. And I know other customers have not churned. So what I can do there is I can look at that data with those labels, that customer record with churn, that customer record with not churn. And churn is when, guys, if you don't know, like when a customer stops becoming a customer, like you leave, you end your gym membership, right? Or you cancel
or a subscription, online subscription.
Or your online subscription. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. I'm dreaming about when we actually all go out and do things pre-COVID, right? Yeah. Having memberships to social clubs and private clubs and stuff, right?
They still keep charging me my gym, even though everything is closed.
I had to send a certified letter to Gold's Gym, right? Go and risk the post office exposure, right? Yeah. To go get the thing canceled. They wouldn't cancel it either way. Certified manual. So when I did that, I churned. So you can learn from churn and not churn relationships. It's called binary classification, and then build a model that predicts new data, which customers are likely to churn in the future. And so by learning from historic labeled data, you can predict what will happen on future data. The dirty secret, though, is that machine learning is good when the future looks like the past. Right. And so that's one of the great things about Spark is that in the time of COVID, right, where models are disrupted and no longer useful, it's very expensive for companies to go rebuild them all. But with Spark, bam, it's done very quickly. And in my opinion, to the best industry capability. And I'm happy to run against any competitor, the same data set, and prove that any day of the week. So the long story short is, supervised learning from labeled data to build a model that predicts something. And traditionally, when I start to think about it, I put like supervised into 4 different, I can show you some slides on this a little later, but you really answer 4 different questions, right? Which 2 things will happen, which is binary classification, which 3 or more things will happen, right? Multinomial classification, regression, which is how much will happen, 1 number, and then how much will happen for how long, time series. Yep. And you can ingest data tables to do classification, right? Does the churn or not churn based on my CRM data at Salesforce? You can ingest video, right? Is Anil in this video or not? You can do images. Yep. Is Jude in this video or not? Right? Is the dog and the cat and the wolf in this video or not? Right? I mean, that's multinomial, right? So you can start to do these things in images and video. And so you have, these model classes. And then there's like semi-supervised learning where there's a human in the mix. And, we won't even get into that. And then underlying these sort of conceptual expressions of ML are algorithms, right? And you hear kind of buzzy words about algorithms. I was just texting with a colleague of mine and he was joking me I was Mr. Buzzword, because I was I'm gonna think out of the box. We won't face palm. Anyway, we're just joking over text right before this, Anil. So, the algorithms, you might hear like, oh, deep learning. Well, okay, fair enough, right? So deep learning would be supervised, right? You could argue, right? There's a lot of haze here because we get into some stuff like even GANs in general adversarial networks, right, or recurrent neural networks. But let's ignore that sort of people with AI, right? Driving cars.
Yeah.
There's things like it's also, I should say, reinforcement learning, right? Which is again, a sort of a flavor of those ideas. But there's like some fundamental, types of algorithms that underlie supervised machine learning. So these are things like, there could be linear models, right? Like logistic regressions or gamma or ordinal or all sorts of stuff. And then there can be tree-based models, right? Where data is being split into trees. And those are things like distributed random forest models. And there's things like, gradients, right? If sort of like XGBoost or gradient boosting. So those types of models. There's, ensemble models, right? Stacked, bagged ensembles that can learn from other algorithms and potentially come up with a new algorithm, right? That is better than their base algorithms, meta learning. So, I'm trying to talk about this at a high level. And as I say it, I sort of think, well, I'm missing so much explaining it to you guys. But
I don't think we need to go through the full data science.
Exactly. But the point is, all this stuff I'm talking about with you guys, right? You don't really need to know. That's the whole reason we invented Squark. You will need to learn some KPIs, right, that indicate the model's accuracy or its goodness of fit, or how well it performs fundamentally, right? How complex the model is. There's some cool machine learning KPIs that I think analysts need to know to push forward an understanding of the models. But the idea here was, going back full circle, it's all too complex. Nobody has any time. Like, the last thing people want to be doing, unless they're really into it, is monkeying around with these algorithms in the code. Like, if you're into it, cool, like, get a job and do it, right?
Yeah.
But when you're a business person and like your goal is to drive commerce, to be a job creator, to like make your employees, right, your customers more money, right, or reduce their costs, right? The idea is like, I don't want to work 24 hours a day like I do, right? Eventually, at some point, I'll work like 20 hours a day and spend those 4 hours doing other things. But no, I'm like you guys, I work a lot. So the idea being that if we can democratize data science by taking the complexity out of this stuff and we can give it to people, we can just drive efficiencies. We can help people make more money.
Yep.
And we can free up their time and they can live their lives, right? And they can do what they really are passionate about instead of like, maybe things
trying to fix the code there, right?
So, yeah, exactly. Oh, you
used to. And I think, a lot of this audience, again, my students or audience who are on this channel, they're very much marketing focused. Yeah, they're not technical, like you mentioned, technical marketers, that term, these guys are not technical. And I tell them, there is a track for you, which is technical side, but as a marketer, yes, you need to understand basic stuff, but not go deeper into it. Because there are so many out there who are just mentioning, hey, you need to learn JavaScript, go do this, you need to learn this, you need to learn that. I'm like, why do you need to focus? It's like, hey, if I am trying to build a cabinet, I just need the carpenter. I don't need to know everything. I just need to know if there is a plug and play game, then I can do it. Otherwise, I need to get an expert, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well said. So it's sort of like, if you want to drive somewhere, do you want to get in a car, turn the key and drive somewhere? Or do you want to go like get raw metal, right? And smelt it, right? And like machine your own components and spend like, 5 years in the garage building your car and then drive to your destination. By then, the party's over. You missed it.
Correct.
And and most people don't know, I'm going to go buy a kit car, right? And I have all the tools to build it, right? And they don't have a gas station home either. So how are they going to get out of the garage, right? We'll walk to the gas station.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of times analysts are asked to do the latter two, which is like, hey, just go build it. But that's not the point of analytics, right? The point of analytics isn't monkeying around with tags,
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not the point.
That's not the point.
Is to help people make decisions.
This is where a lot of new breeds, what I've called them, of analysts who basically know, with the tag manager or whatever, I'm seeing this thing. Hey, do this, hack this. You can go. I had students who come to me and say, oh, how do I track this? I'm like, why do you want to track that?
Because somebody asked them to track it.
Yeah. Why?
Right?
Because somebody else has written a code or somebody has written an article. How do you track this? I'm like, you don't need to track this. How does it tie back to your business, what you're trying to do? And if it doesn't work, and why do you need to spend your time? Go find a developer who can do it. If that's what you want to track, go get somebody to do it. Sure, there is a space, you need to understand. I get it. People like me also like to monkey around a bit to get that knowledge. But when I look at it, I'm like, I don't need to spend my time. This is where my time is better spent. So
if you like to do it, you'll do it. I mean, if that's what you want to do.
Somebody is building those tools. So there is a place for that. Right.
Yeah, it's a place
somebody
for that.
is building your Squark, or the developers, that there is a place for that too. But
of course,
you have to decide which direction you want to be.
Yeah, that's right.
So tell us about something like, so a lot of audience here are in that boat where they're like, okay, now I get it. I don't have to write all this code. There are a lot who will learn how to write code. They want to become data scientists and they want to become the technical implementation guy. Get it. But those who don't, for them, Squark fills a gap that they have and they can immediately start to use it for their benefit. Give us some ideas of what your customers are doing or how they're using it, particularly as it pertains to marketing.
Let me tell you too, even data scientists use Squark.
All right, there you go.
And some of the biggest and best ones that I know do. And here's why. Like, a lot of stuff can just be automated. You don't need to actually go to the level that you would need to go to build a churn model like 3 or 4 or even 5 years ago, right? You don't need to go to that level. So you can do it with automation. But there's a whole set of stuff, right, that obviously Squark doesn't do, right? Outside of, the core supervised learning, like we're not doing image classification. You'll see that next year, I'm sure. So maybe you have a project with image classification, right? And that's what your PhD is trained on. And you'd rather do that than play around with some churn data. So the data scientists that are good use Squark or other capabilities that automate things. And they're happy to do it because they realize it improves velocity, it frees up resources, it allows them to concentrate on maybe higher order, higher value, more interesting things. Where I see resistance in data science is by people who probably don't know what they're doing as well. And they think like, oh, I can do it, right? So when I go and sell this stuff, if there's a data scientist in the room, all they have the ability to do is say no. They don't have any budget, right? So I want to sell to them. So I go and I sell the business because the business has the money and the business has the problem. And because of the dearth or acute insufficiency of data science resources, even in enterprises, let alone the absence in small, medium, or even super corporate companies, in these enterprises, there are what I call AI deserts, right? They just like nobody's getting service. I mean, when I ran analytics teams too, some people got more service than others, like the ecom team, right? But maybe the security team didn't because they had their own analysts, right? And, they'd like some resources too, but you don't have them, and the business priorities and, yada, yada, right? So you can certainly, as a data scientist, use Squark, and you can certainly, as a business user, do stuff that you would otherwise have to push out to other teams or hire inexpensive resources to do it. And here's the dirty secret, I think, too, about data science. And I love data science, don't get me wrong, right? Is that it's largely been a failure for most companies, right? 13%, according to IBM, models that have been developed are in production. So how can it be successful if 87% of them are not making it to production? Now that data is probably about a year and a half old. Let's say it's 20% now. Let's even be generous. It's 26%. So still 3/4 of the projects fail. And you're paying a data scientist on average with less than 3 years of experience, 80% of them, right? Less than 3 years of experience, you know, what we would pay analysts, you know, in digital analytics 10 years ago, right? Like 110, 120.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the expectation is these people who largely have no business experience, right,
Yep.
are going to go in and understand your business. Their degree is probably not in marketing. The degree's in, yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Research, social
I
sciences,
have a
psychology.
funny story about such a model that was built by the data scientist guy in our company. I mean, back to your point about not understanding the business, right? They're just building these things. They built a model, and I looked at the model or the outcome, and I said, okay, so this is telling me that if this is Christmas and we are in Denver, then we will sell this product more, right? And the guy goes, no. He goes, if this product is selling in Denver, then it's likely Christmas. I'm like, what? So I can discount this product in summer, sell it a lot, and we are in Denver. That means we can make it Christmas happen. Is that what you're telling me? So he was like, I'm like, think about from the business standpoint. What do they want to know? They want to know, hey, it's Christmas. I'm in Denver. What product should I be putting in front of people, or what product should be selling there? Rather than you saying, I can make Christmas if I am able to sell this product in July even. So think
Yeah,
about the
that's just
way that these
crazy.
guys
It's
are.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So when I started to look at like what we're doing at Squawk, I realized that the only way for this stuff to get into the real world and actually be successful for companies of all sizes, because it can't just be the wonderful Amazon or the beautiful Google or the super cool Uber, these amazing, amazing companies that are really breaking
Yeah.
new ground with this stuff. It has to be enabled for everybody. And it can't just be the Western world, first world, right? It has to be second world, it has to be third world, it has to be globally available, and it has to be done in a way that is affordable to people, right? So I present a solution that costs what, $1,000 a month, that I know for a fact is being sold for many, many magnitudes by competitors than that. And our stuff, like I said, I'm calling them out. I will do it. I will do the Pepsi challenge with you guys, right? I'm that confident in it. And we can run the same data.
Yep.
So I wanted to create, and my partner and I wanted to create something that could democratize this stuff and give it to everybody, whether we're growing market in South America or in Africa or in Asia, right? Not just in Silicon Valley or Boston or Austin or Chicago, right? Or Silicon Slopes in parts Utah. It's going to be made available for everybody. It's got to be affordable for everybody, and it's got to solve 80% of the problems that everybody has. And so that's what we did. And so to answer like the marketing question, right? Well, there are lots of things. Like when you're a marketer, right? One of the things that is really nice to generate are leads, right? Because what do you do with a lead? You qualify the lead,
Correct.
right? And then
Yep.
once you qualify that lead, you hope that the sales team looks at it and the sales team accepts it or qualifies it in their way.
Yep.
And then the dance begins, the beautiful SaaS or software or sales dance, where you hope that, and you get fingers crossed, you hope that people get it and they like it and they want to buy it, and then they buy it, and you have customer ACV, customer value, right? So in marketing, being able to generate leads, right, through demand generation is important. But what happens when you generate a lead? Like, let's say you're a 45,000 person, media company and information company in New York City that has some of the best AI in their products ever. Well, maybe their demand generation team has a case of the cobbler's shoes. They get no service, but they get 10,000 contacts a month through Pardot. And every single one of those 10,000 contacts needs to be called in a call center by a human, right? Maybe that happens. And then once the person is called by a human, they're qualified. Oh, Anil, you're real, right? Right? The phone number doesn't bounce, or actually somebody picks up. And oh, you actually have a need. You didn't just randomly download the white paper because you're interested in it, or you're a competitor and wanted to copy it or something like that, right? You're actually interested in it. So maybe what you do is you learn from the contacts, right, that you've collected that have become marketing qualified leads, and the contacts that you have collected that have not become marketing qualified leads. And then you can build a model that will help you for new data predict the probability. Right? Prediction isn't an absolute certainty. It's not magic dust. It's predicting probabilities, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Probabilistic. Yeah. So probabilities of that contact to become a marketing qualified lead. And so then I can take that 10,000 contact list and I can resort it for demand gen. And I can say, hey, call Anil Batra, contact 9,999 first, because Anil is the guy who's got the signal. The machine is telling me from the learning, the signal. Hey, Facebook, right? The signal is there. And then that person can be called first, and all of a sudden, boom, that's qualified, goes to sales, it goes through the process, revenue gets generated, everybody's happy, numbers are made, equity price goes up. We're all going on cruises, right, to the President's Club. Now, that is an example of lead scoring, right? You can do it with rules. I got lead scoring in Pardot. Sure you do.
Yeah.
Lead scoring in HubSpot. Well, maybe you do. At the end of the day, with machine learning, you can do better than rules-based. Give them 50 points because they clicked on the white paper, 100 points because they answered the phone, whatever, your lead scoring.
Well, I think your machine learning can even help. How many points to give to what paper, right? So that's the whole thing. How do you know 50 points?
That's the thing. Paper? It's like, it's so meta. It's like, it's almost like eating itself. You're absolutely right. So, and fundamentally, any decision where there are two outcomes can be modeled. Like, I put a sensor on I'm like, remember Joseph Carabas? Remember Joseph Carabas in the industry? Remember. Brilliant thinker. I was joking with him one time about, can you detect it on a coffee cup? He's like, can you stick a sensor on it? And he's right. Like, if the coffee cup has an IoT device on it, and how warm it is, and like how frequently it's picked up, I can predict when, if it's going to get picked up again. What will the temperature be at a certain time, right? By learning from that. And it's really, not to digress, but you've got two outcomes. Like, it's either a qualified lead or a not qualified lead. So let's learn from the historic data, which means you have to have the historic data or a way to label data, right?
Yeah.
And even machine learning can label data automatically, but supervised has to learn from something, right? Just like we had to learn to speak Hindi, or lead had to learn to speak English, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn. And if you've learned English or Hindi, you can't ask, well, go speak Bengali. Right? Yeah. Maybe you can with Hindi, but not with English. So
not even with Hindi, maybe a little bit.
Or even Sanskrit, right? Shanti, right?
Yeah.
So these binary outcomes can be predicted, like, will the contact become a marketing qualified lead? And now think about it. What other in the sales funnel outcomes are binary? Well, was the marketing qualified lead become a marketing accepted lead, or a sales qualified lead, or a sales accepted lead? Will it be win-loss, or win or loss?
So you can predict all those things. Yeah.
And that's
so keeping time in check. I know we can keep going for 2-3 hours here. We'll do another session with you. Definitely.
We'll do it after the release in January, when I'm going to drop something on the world that nobody has seen.
Okay.
So if there are any companies out there hungry that are a lot bigger than Squark and want to see the best ML that's going to be out there.
So we're going to see the demo of Squark next time?
Possibly, if we have time.
Okay.
Possibly.
How about people who want to try Squark right now as is?
We do have an MVP. We do have a freemium version, right? It's very limited, guys, right? And it's actually a test. It's a test interface.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. I have played with the tool. I know it's pretty cool. I know you want to make it even. You want to make it better, but I played with the tool. I find it easy.
Keep in mind the way we kind of grew this business is I like to think a little differently. So one of the things I'm not going to do is go take a bunch of other people's money and hope my idea pays them back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my money into it, and I'm going to make sure we have traction and we have paying customers. And then if we like the people who want to invest with us, we're going to, hopefully convince them to give us their money and, work. So what I didn't do is I didn't go out and try to create the customer experience first, right? I actually just wanted to build the technology, because we knew 4 years ago that the world would come around. So I like hockey. So we're going to skate to where the puck is going, not where it is today. So we started with a very far out vision, and we had the capital to do it, and we had the time. So we built it out. It's only recently that we've taken this year pretty quickly the sufficiency of additional capital to have some more fun. So at this point, Squark has a freemium version, and we limit it, right? It's not going to be on GPUs. You're not going to get time series. You're not going to get all the feature engineering. You're not going to get all the explainability. You're not going to get all the connectors. You're not going to get the activators. You're not going to get some stuff that we give to people who pay for it. But here's the deal: you're going to get a better tool for free, at least for 10 days, right now, than what some other people are going to try to sell you for a lot more money. So our goal is, we love HubSpot, right? We're just such big HubSpot fans. They just have such an amazing product-led growth model, just such an amazing success team and model and service team. Just the guys, the way they do success and service there is truly unbelievable. And I'm very inspired by that company. So we say, we'll just roll out a freemium. And we did it this year, primarily because, I can't say it was because of COVID, but what we noticed is a lot of people were offering free stuff because of COVID. And I just felt that was super opportunistic.
Yeah.
Okay, look at us. We want to help. We're going to give you free stuff because of COVID. I thought to myself, you know what a lot of people have is no jobs anymore. And they want to learn this stuff. So why not just give it away, a limited version that's better than everybody else. Not everybody else, but it's better, in my opinion, than everybody else. But, and we're just going to give it away. And we're going to do product-led growth. And if they like it, they're going to come back and buy it. And so it works, and they do. Fundamentally, if you go to squarkai.com, we didn't want to buy squark.com because there's a domain squatter. I'm going to waste my money. I don't care. Squarkai.com, and you can go to /free Squark, free-Squark, and you can sign up. And, we actually review who signs up. Because every so often we get people who, trying to sniff us out. Like one time an analyst was trying to sniff us out and, from a Polish account, and we sniffed it out, didn't give them access. So anyway, long story short is, if it's a Gmail account you're signing up with, we may or may not accept it, right? But
can they indicate something about this?
Oh, yeah, just add in. Yeah, if it's a Gmail account you guys have, you just write an Optizen, right? Yeah. But we're still going to check you out. So, hopefully you have a LinkedIn profile, because if you don't, what are you doing, guys? You have a LinkedIn profile, right? It's not about
don't want to sell it to spiders and bots.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's not free for us to do it.
Yeah.
But it's free for you guys to do it. So we want to make sure that the people who are using it are, number one, not trying to eat our lunch. There's a lot of copycats out there these days. We also want to make sure that the people who are using it are actually going to use it, right? And one of the cool things that we do is we will give you an hour's worth of free services, right? So you want to download free, we're going to talk to you. You want to talk to me, if I have time, right? Because it doesn't always in the round robin come to me. I will go and I'll sit down with you and tell you all about this stuff and help you work through it. I tend to work on, so if, you're a student, it's less likely you'll end up working with me. But, if you're a brand and you're a buyer, right? We'll work together. And then once you get the software, another thing I don't like about when I bought software is that, you saw the demo. What you bought doesn't look anything like that, right? Visual Sciences, black box, right? Not black box, it was a black screen. You got to go build the schema, you got to go. But what they showed you was amazing. So you need to go get services, call support. It's like what I used to do with Omniture and Adobe. It's go call services or support, and they're and they'll kind of hint at things. And then when you finally need the answer, you got to go. It's $310 an hour, or we'll give you some blended labor rate with folks in Delhi for $185 an hour. And it's but didn't I buy this already, right? Why aren't you making me successful? Well, because you're not enough, you're not spending enough, right? You're not part of the top 10% of the companies they care about. HubSpot's very different, right? HubSpot will take care of their customers. Their VP of success is just really over the last year and a half has really, I think, sea changed their success, which was already really good. So, and long story longer is that we offer what I call Squark symmetry, right? Which is a play on the meaning of Squark, which I'll explain in a second. And that's our proprietary onboarding customer success and training program. So once you buy, we're just going to give you 8 hours of services a month. I'm not going to charge you anything for it. Now, as you know, Anil, when I charged the daily rate, it wasn't free, right? 99% of people couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're so gung-ho on this that, and it's so successful that it's worth me, making sure that every single one of our customers doesn't have the same problems that I had, which is dealing with somebody who doesn't know what the heck they're talking about in support, trying to sell me more services when I've already spent enough money with the software. So we're going to give you the free services to make you successful. And that's just what it comes down to. In the current time, I'm not going to say we're always going to do that. As the company continues to grow, we're less than 20 people now with engineers, maybe
so this is the time to get on and get the help that you need, right?
It's also the time to get on before we likely
tell me about
this.
So tell me, so the interface is changing. You are coming up with the new UI, which we will bring. Actually, we'll do a demo of that.
It's completely done. It's just whenever I want to drop it on the world.
Yeah. So when we'll do that, and for now, people can sign up and get free access. You'll qualify them and then get them the access that they need. And those who are not qualified, come back to me, and I will work with Judah to make sure you get access. Or
it's very unlikely that if you put Optizent, we wouldn't just accept you. You know what? Yeah. The only thing that annoys me with the freemium, to be honest with you, is it's like one per company. And so sometimes, all of a sudden somebody gets it and then there's like a whole bunch of people using it.
And
it's like, you know what, then I got to send them a message, or we'll have the success team send them a message saying, it's one per company, shut you down.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
that's the only thing that's annoying about it, right? Is people try to game the system, and it's unnecessary at our price point. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, there is a cost involved in everything. We do training, consulting, and I try to help as many people as I can. And I really want to help people. I know a lot of people are jobless right now, and they want to learn new stuff. And I'm always willing to work with them. But there is a cost associated, whether it's hard cost, whether it's a family time cost, whatever. There is a bunch of stuff, right? I get all those messages. So people have to be also conscious about that. Hey, there is a cost involved. It's not, everything is not going to be free. So make sure you don't overwhelm somebody with that request.
Yeah. And I sound probably tougher about the approval process than it really is, because we generally approve everybody. It's only been in a few rare instances where we haven't, where, it was clearly a competitor. It was clearly somebody trying to sniff it out and, try to be smarter than us. And that's going to be pretty hard. And it's clearly people who are trying to take advantage of the system. So that's the only time we ever really throttle them. But it's world-class ML, right? It would no code in clicks that will run spins and tails around many other of the folks who just entered the space in the last year and a half. So long story short is I get the free Squark. And then, you got to come up with the use cases. So one I talked about was like at the top of the funnel, right? Lead scoring. I talked about how you go to the bottom of the funnel. Now you got a customer, right? And maybe we can predict how much their lifetime value will be. Maybe we can predict what the price should be, right? Surge pricing, right? Maybe we can predict what to offer them, right? As the service or the product. So there's this whole thing called next best action, right? PEGA, PEGA, charge you a ton of money to do next best action. We can do next best action, but the reality is I call it future best action, because it's not just the next best. It's if I have 10 promotional offers and I've sent them out to my audience, and now I have data about the response to those 10, I can then learn from that response, and I can predict for Anil, here's the probability of Anil to respond to each of those 10 offers. Send Anil offer 8, then offer 3, then offer 6, then offer 1. Judah gets offer 10, then offer 9, then offer 2, then offer 7, right? So I can predict not just next best, I can predict like future best action. So, and you can start to drip out. So think about the ability to then take out of the acquisition space, right, or the conversion space into behaviors or into loyalty, right?
Mm-hmm.
All those cases are going to come. So even if we go out into acquisition, right? Will the ad get a click or not? Which ad should we serve?
Correct.
How many impressions, right? I mean, all this stuff, right, that I know and cold, right, and that you guys on the phone are learning, or maybe know really cold too. I'm sure there's some experts on here as well, like you, Anil. And we end up being able to predict, again, like which 2 things will happen, which 3 or more things will happen, how much will happen, one number, how many impressions, what's the cost, what's the revenue, what's the profit, right? What's the click-through rate? What's the conversion rate? One number, that's a regression, continuous variable. And then how much for how long, time series. Squark Underlies has nearly a dozen different algorithms that are running, excluding the core learning algorithms and some other stuff that drive the automation that's very proprietary. So it's really a world-class package, including a whole bunch of like NLP, right? So you want to do sentiment analysis, you want to ingest your intercom data. You want to look at your verbatims in your call center against actual CRM data. We'll knock it out of the park all day with those use cases. And then the cool thing about Squark is we've just got this great connector architecture, and I like to call them intelligent connectors. So there's some IP there as well. So long story short is, the things that we do across the customer journey or the path to purchase, in the sales funnel, and the behavioral experience with a product or with a service, in the loyalty and retention phase, everything can be modeled there, right? If you have the data and you're collecting it and you know how to get it in the right system. So, I can go and let me just grab something out real quick. I won't display this, but I want to read it because it's sort of an internal artifact. Let me find this. I call it.
So while you're finding this, I want to find out if there are any questions out there. We're approaching, or we are at the end of our presentation or time as well.
Okay.
So I want to also recap on this thing. So for people who are listening and will be watching this replay, go ahead and submit for Squark AI, the freemium version, and hopefully you'll get qualified to receive it. Play with certain scenarios. Judah already mentioned, and I think in your training, you already have certain scenarios they can play with, right? So go ahead and try it out.
Let me show you a couple things before we go.
Sure.
I thought we had an hour and a half, Anil.
No, we can. We go for 30 minutes more. So I already have 1.5 hours assigned.
Nice.
What you can do is show this, and I'll also take questions as people jump on and off on the stream. So, and a lot of people will be watching the replay. So I want to make sure they also get full, idea of what Squark can offer.
Yeah. So, and keep in mind, our goal here is to help.
60 minutes or
so. Minutes, yeah, exactly. They're like, who's this long-haired COVID bearded guy talking about, all this stuff? But anyway, I get it. The thing is, we're here to help, and we want everybody in the world to use it. I don't care where you live. This is a global market for this stuff, and it's not cost prohibitive. So let's go to, I want to just share something real quick. I've got way too many things open on my screen. Let me share my screen here. All right. Yeah, I've got so many controls, guys. The simple days of Netscape are well over, Anil. So this is the Squark. I just reroute everybody to it if they type it in, but that's the URL there, right? SquarkAI.com, free Squark. First name, last name, email, organization name. What will you do with Squark? You just type an option in. Or, I'd love to hear what you think you should do with it. And then, obviously we've got to be GDPR compliant, and you got to opt in and all that jazz around privacy. And you can read our privacy policy here. And, you can click through to read about Squark symmetry, right? You can also download a whole bunch of free machine learning sample data sets. So this is one of the things that, sometimes you got to wrap your head around, right? That you need data, and you may not know exactly what data you need, hence the 1 hour service, like hence asking you what do you want to do with it? So when we call you up and say, hey, let's talk, we have something to talk about, and it's not just me telling you about UBIT. So, you want to predict customer churn. Here's a great data set, right? Run it through and see how it beats my competitors on Squark. Here's a great multivariate data set about contract prediction. Here's a regression about predicting price. There's a traditional data set that's pretty well known called the Iris data set. You'll see this, run it. We'll tell you, is it Iris? Is it, another type of flower? If you're looking to predict Amazon Alexa data with feedback, right? Again, I'm a big Amazon fan. We can do it for binary multivariate perspective. If you want to do offer prediction, how about loan risk, right?
Oh, this is pretty cool.
Thanks, man.
So what's the URL? Make sure to drop
this
the
one
URL.
Is download free machine learning sample data sets.
Can you copy that and put in the Zoom chat here so I can post it?
Yeah, totally. And this is, again, like, me, Anil, I like to talk to people. I like to share my experience. I like to be the dumbest guy in the room. So I want to help people. And so by just giving these guys, like giving people access to the tool, access to the data, learn it, right? Mm-hmm. Drive your regional economies, drive your country economies, drive the economies in your business, right? And then when you realize the economic benefit and the economic value, come back and buy it, right? That's all I ask, right? And it's not expensive, right? Your boss spends more on this for lunch. Your company spends more on this to, put things in the restrooms, right? Well, I mean, literally, we could sell this stuff for so much more money, right? But the reality is that's not our model, right? And our model is so strong at scale that this is the way to go. Product-led growth, right? SaaS, no-code AI. Keep in mind, all the infrastructure is provisioned. And I didn't even talk about, if we've got some real engineering here, right? I didn't even talk about, we lead with the no-code interface. I didn't talk about the API. I didn't talk about model code export, like literally exporting the machine learning code. Who's doing that? I'll give you the code, but not in the freemium version.
We need to look at a particular use case or 2 or 3 use cases over a period of time where you can show how that works to really put people in that mode. But guys, those who are listening, watching,
deep integration with Kubernetes, right? With Lambda functions. Squark supports all these big data frameworks at scale. I will also challenge any competitor out there on scale. I don't care if you've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. I'll challenge you on scale. Automotive customer lifetime value, right? How about predicting wine consumer segmentation? How about predicting web analytics tag performance with the stuff you're getting out of the amazing Observe point? How about predicting sales opportunity size? How about customer targeting and predicting customer risk? So these data sets are available for you guys literally to play with and learn about. And all you need to do is pick this column, churn. Pick this column, contract, and then click next, click next, click next, and it's done. And a few of those clicks are even unnecessary. So get the freemium, go grab a data set, and then book some time, ask some questions. That's what we're here for, right? We love this stuff, right? I learned everything I could about web analytics. I mean, I'll admit it, guys. I learned everything I possibly could. And then I realized I forgot more than most people will ever know. And you too, Neil. And so I had to go and do something else. I had to be like, you know what, enough monkeying around with tags and telling people the same stuff for 15 straight years that I've been talking about since the last millennium. Let's go and build new cool stuff, and let's innovate, and let's bring it to the masses, and let's educate people and drive the economy. Let's create job creators.
I went through the same stuff. I'm like, I've been doing this for years, the same stuff teaching. I started when people did not know what a visit page view visitor was, right? That's how my conversations were. Log file analysis. Then I said, I love teaching. So I went into the whole training consulting side or training side of things and teaching side of things. So started teaching with University of British Columbia, when UBC started with.
Oh yeah, I remember you were one of the early guys there. Yeah, that was such a.
Yep.
It is such a great program with Rachel.
2006. That was the first one to teach web analytics. So I've been teaching that program until it ended 3 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. University of Washington, Bellevue College, DAA. I run classes for DAA, and then on Optisant Academy. So it's like you said, we've been doing this for years. For me, it's like, okay, how can I bring this and really teach people what they need to learn and bring new technologies, new ideas like yours, Squark. I mean, this is amazing. There are
and it's so
people who
generous of you, Anil, because like I said, you've been there forever. You invented the local chapters in the DAA, right?
Exactly.
You get credit for that. You totally invented it. I know you did because I modeled it when I invented the Boston chapter, right? And it was the first ones, right? So, the fact that you've actually been so generous with your knowledge is actually inspiration for me, quite honestly, because like
You've been
when I started to realize like, oh man, I can't continue just to tell new people the same stuff over and over again. It's just like, how about you just
hey, I started creating videos for that. Go take it.
That's what I was about to say. Just record it and just watch the video, right?
Record it.
And then I realized like, well, I have to put a model on that. So what I did is I did the same thing. So I ended up I was a Harvard iLab VIP through this company called Experfy, this wonderful marketplace, this wonderful talent cloud. And so I really enjoyed, being to talk to the entrepreneurs and just kind of being in the academic environment. And then, thanks to the advice from like Jim Stern and other folks, I realized to be a real consultant, you got to write a book. So I wrote 3 books, right? I wrote a book in 2012 or /11 called Building a Digital Analytics Organization. This is before anybody built a digital analytics. I was doing it. There were no teams, right?
Yep.
There were a few, but for digital, right? There weren't very many. And I just happened to have a large one at Monster. So got out,
at
sort
Monster,
of put that all together. Then I wrote another one called Digital Analytics Primer. I had Tom Davenport, the famous, brilliant academic thinker, write the forward. I had Gary Angel, another one of my favorite, brilliant professional thinkers, right?
Gary's stuff is great. I always mention Gary in my conversation. I'm like, if the guy, he's not doing digital as such now, but in store, but the thinking and all that stuff, you guys should pay attention.
Yeah, he took all the functionalism and he took, the pathing and a lot of the web analytics concepts that,
put it in store.
Honestly, he helped articulate and invent and put it into the store footprint with video. And he's got some AI in there too. He's doing some really cool stuff. I think he probably had the same thing. He's like, how many times can I tell people the same thing?
Same thing. Yeah.
Right. And he wanted to do something new. I can't speak on behalf of Gary, but he wrote the book. I actually helped get his book published, right? I was the consulting editor for that book, though I didn't write anything. I just made the introductions. And then I wrote a book called E-commerce Analytics because they came back to me and I was doing a bunch of work in e-com, Pearson. And then we're supposed to do 2 books. One was the overview and one was the actual teacher workbook. The second teacher workbook, they had some layoffs they didn't want to do. So, all right, I'll keep it, we'll put that e-commerce. So I wrote the 3 books and then I started guest lecturing at all these schools. And eventually I became an adjunct lecturer at Babson, which I haven't done in quite some time. Because when you teach, you actually have to care. And if you're too busy to care, you shouldn't be teaching, right?
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I realized that I just don't have time. And then I ended up with Boston University. I built their digital analytics course, one of their marketing analytics courses, taught that for a while. I was super well ranked. My professor scores were I thought pretty stellar. I just didn't have time. So I did the whole academic thing. And I love that environment. I love being able to learn from people and attempt to teach people. So that just gave way to Squark. And, at the end of the day, this machine learning stuff is not going anywhere. The way I sort of think about AI is like how I thought about the internet when I was realizing it in the early 90s on BBSs and my 2400 baud modem, right? Is that this stuff is going to change the world. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to change the world, but look, I can go play. I used to play Trade Wars, which was this text-based game on bulletin board systems when you dial up, like CompuServe, right? If you guys remember CompuServe, it's before AOL. And then I was on AOL. You got mail, and I just watched the internet unfold, and nobody knew. Well, I can't say nobody knew. Bezos knew. Bezos knew, right? Jeff Bezos knew. But most people didn't know what was going to happen with it or where it was going to go. And AI is kind of like that, right? Where an ML is like that, where it has the potential and is changing the world, but it is so early, right? The compute power, the data now, the algorithms that are available, the people getting educated in it globally, right? Whether it's at the Indian Engineering Institute, Beijing University, MIT, right? Getting educated in it. And it will continue to be pervasive like the internet became. It will be stitched into everything at the points where decisions about predictions are being made. You see it right now in Waze, right? I mean, Waze is a predictive app. It's predicting which route to take. It's predicting when you're going to get there, right? It's already being mainstream. Surge pricing, right? The amazing God view they have at Uber. I mean, the stuff is unbelievable. And Squark, fortunately, I like to think, is well positioned as like the mosaic, right? Or the Lotus 1, 2, 3 of what we do in ML and AI, which again is not everything. We're not driving cars, right? We're not doing some of the image stuff, right now that we know how to do it, and you can just pass a binary code into it, and we can do it anyway with unstructured with our technology. But the reality is, for what we do, well positioned. And I just feel like ignoring ML and AI right now is like ignoring the internet and just saying, oh, I'm going to read the newspaper. Or what I used to work at this company called IDG, and they at one point said, nobody can link to us, right? This is like the insane church versus state thing I was talking about with editorial and digital. Nobody can link to us. It's like, are you nuts?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
I mean, they had that dictate.
But I have a question here.
Yeah,
Jude, I have a question here from Mike S. I like the fact that you offer sample data set to see how it works. How do you work with customers that may have a data scarcity issue or data gap? How much actual data is too little?
That's a really great question, Mike. I appreciate you asking. So first of all, how do we work with you? We want to make sure it's going to be useful for you. So when we talk about, in the hour or whatever conversation we have, we're going to make sure that it's a good fit. And we're going to help you work through what data you'll need. The reality is that we give you a warning when there are less than 200 rows. Okay, saying, hey, this may not be as predictive as you want. And when I say 200 rows, I mean 200 rows of the training data, the data that you learn from to build the model. In Squark, not in all systems, there's really two files that are needed if you want to predict something. One is the training file with the labeled data that you learn from. We say 200 rows. The second is this, what we call the production file, or the file in which there's new data that you want to add the predictions. So in that churn use case, the training file is the historic data of customers who have churned and not churned. And in the production file, you have all the new customers you're asking the question, will they churn or not churn? And once we learn from that training data to build the model then scores the probability of each customer to churn or not. So you need two files. That's why you're going to see when you click on these things and you download a zip file, it's going to have a training and a production file in it. The training file is the file to learn from the first file in Squark to upload and select what you want to predict. The production file is the one that scores. So we help you reconcile that. And the cool thing with the connectors we have is that is made a lot easier. And then we also, warn you if there's that, less than 200. Now I want to tell you a story about that because, there's this sort of a lot of BS in AI. And one of the things they say is, garbage data and garbage data out. And that's true. But Squark has a whole make your data better set of proprietary automated data prep features that include, feature engineering, feature selection, a whole bunch of other stuff we can talk about in January. And so we're going to actually go through and help prepare that data. Is it everything that you could do in data prep? No. Are we trying to replace Paxata or Trifacta? No. But to make that data that you upload sing in those algorithms, we got a lot of secret sauce going on behind in the data prep once you click there. We don't do the best job articulating that on the current website, which along with everything else at Squark will change pretty rapidly pretty soon. So the cool thing is, for a university in the United States that has a medical program, they use adaptive tests. I'm just going to tell you a story. They use adaptive tests. And so they came to us and said, we want to predict the success of students, right? And education is, an entrenched area that, we could verticalize into, but, probably not interested in it. The reality is you can predict student success before the student is accepted. And then you can also predict students in flight, how will they graduate, what's driving their success or failure. So we took 189 records that contain, it was a pretty wide data file, 189 people with what they used to apply to school, like whatever the application was to this medical school or medicine oriented school. It wasn't a med school. And we also took data they gave us data that included which classes they took, what their grades were, who the professors were, and their GPA. And so I simply said, we could predict GPA, right? But I said, you know what, let's predict who's likely to graduate with above a 3.0 GPA. Because when I'm old enough when they didn't have 5.0 GPAs or whatever when I was going to school. So if you got above a 3.0, that was like, something to shoot for. If you wanted to, think you were doing well, right? So, obviously that's not the best GPA and you want to do a lot better than that. But, I thought, all right, let's just cut the classifier at 3.0. So we took the data, the admissions, the applicant data and all their performance, and I split it into two files. One that was just the applicant data with the known GPA, because these folks had gone through the program. And I said, all right, anybody who has above a 3.0 gets a good, and anybody who has above 3.0 gets a bad, right? And so then I learned from that applicant only data to then score new students on their likelihood to be successful in the program. And so the thing is, this was unblinded. So we kind of knew when we scored, like, were we successful? And we were. It was a pretty accurate model. The success in predicting was greater than 80%. So I looked at this medicine or medical type of college adaptive tests that they give you, like the SAT, the LSAT, the MCAT, the PCAT, right? All these aptitude tests from ETS. And, you go read the fine print and they say like, oh, I took the GMAT when I went and got my MBA and my Master of Science, right? I take the GMAT. And I was like, this is a waste of my time. Why do I have to take this foolish thing? It's not going to be predictive. It's not going to tell you anything. So what if I get, the equation right or wrong? It tells me nothing about my success in business or my aptitude to succeed in school. As a matter of fact, I remember looking at the data back then, it was like something like 36% accurate. I was like, so it's wrong. Yeah. And then this MCAT test or whatever, PCAT test was between 29 and 51% predictive of student success. I had with this machine learning model, a model that could predict prior to admission, which is applicant data, greater than 80%. Kicked the butt out of ETS, kicked the butt out of those aptitude tests. And they loved it. And then I could also score people in flight in the class to determine whether they're going to be successful. So that was a pretty cool use case. And that only took 189 records. So to Mike, long story, I love to talk on these things. That's an example of where smaller data. And the thing is, like, when we talk about bigger data, the reality is it reaches a point of diminishing returns. Just because you load 5 billion rows, it may not actually be any better than a million rows. Like, I used to have an old boss at Monsters, an experimental psychologist, doctor. He's like, you can predict the world with 30 random observations, right? So, with neural networking and, some of the very advanced AI, cutting edge AI stuff, yes, the more data you have, the better, right? But the reality is, for these decisions, no, it doesn't always mean that. And there are certain types of models, like the tree models will work better on smaller data than, maybe some of the other models. So we've taken that into account in Squark. So I hope that answered your question with an example.
Cool. All right. So we are about at time now. Any other questions you have? And yeah. So anything else you want to add at the very end, Judah? Where do they go next from here? So we will do another session in January, February, where you'll kind of see
we're going
the
to go
Spark
through the
tool
next
in
session.
action.
We're going to go through the interface. We're going to go look at some really cool stuff, and we're going to run models, and we're going to like focus it on marketing. I just wanted to talk in this one, right? Because we've got a lot of stuff that's coming out that's going to blow people's minds, and I want to make sure that I put the right foot forward since this is recorded, and you can just enjoy the passion of one of the co-founders, right?
Yeah.
Who's really innovating in this space. I want to say something. When me and my co-founder Dan started doing this, I used to joke with Dan. I would say, we look at Scott Brinker, and I'm a big fan of Chief Martech and Scott Brinker stuff, and I'm a big fan of the analysts, whether they're Forrester or Gartner or IDC or Aberdeen or all the other ones. And I looked at what we were planning to do, and there was no category for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was no category for this. And I said, you know what? Like, we're going to invent this, and we're going to get covered by these analysts when they recognize what we're doing. And to Forrester's credit, right? A big Forrester fan. They recognized that there was innovation in this space last year. And so they tapped us, and we went through the process and proved it all out. And we got into, a Forrester wave, a new wave, right, for emergent technology as one of the 9 machine learning companies in the world that matter. Now, keep in mind, at the time, it was me and Dan bootstrapping it, right? It wasn't as large as it was, but we were up there, right, with the biggest names in the industry and companies whose CEOs I have just a phenomenal amount of respect for their inspirational achievements. And we're really proud of that, right? The fact that these, 2 scrappy BI, web analytics, digital analytics guys could see what the future held, skate to it, and then create, commercially viable, analyst recognized, globally deployed, capabilities that are, really helping the business. So we're pretty proud of that fact, just to get the recognition. I was on the phone with someone I really respect yesterday, a very well-known analyst in the, advertising space. And he brought his team, and he was just like, this is monstrously amazing, right? And so it's nice to get credibility. It's nice to get recognition. Sometimes it feels better than collecting the money. But, hopefully what you guys will end up doing is trying it out, reaching out, and convincing your managers or spending your budget on it, right? And then, you'll see Squawk in the unicorn field someday, right? Unless somebody gets smart.
I am pretty sure we will. Yes.
Yeah, unless somebody gets smart enough to tuck us in, So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, right?
Thank you very much. This was great learning. Learned a lot, how you build a company, all about the different models or different ways of doing machine learning. And then definitely use cases are definitely going to be very useful for you guys. So take a look at this page, see which one resonates with you, play with it, do it more than what resonates at this point, but just play with it. And if you have any questions, feel free to send out those questions to me or Judah, or put that as a comment. And I will definitely make sure all your questions are answered in the next session. We will just have those if you have, and then also look at the demo. So
yeah, we'll do it after the holidays, after Hanukkah, after Christmas, after Tabasco. I know Diwali's over. And in the new year in 2021. And then by the time we all get vaxxed and we come out of this global nightmare that we're all living through, you'll see me on the circuit. Oh, we're definitely going to get over it. We'll see it on the circuit. And the cool thing is some of the folks in this space, the technology is being used to help. If I name competitors, but a big one that I don't really consider a competitor. Their CEOs in DC right now really helping their response, and so it's a real honor to know those guys. So this stuff is helping to close out COVID too, So I hope you guys enjoyed the call. I like to have a lot of fun on these. I didn't just want to do a spiel and show you guys a deck, and it's just so fun to connect with Anil. You guys are all so lucky to be able to work with one of the guys who really helped innovate in the industry and define it.
Thank you,
sharing his knowledge. And I just want to wish you guys, health, right? Health and long life. Wear your masks, please. It's not a hoax, right?
Yep. It's not a hoax.
It's not a hoax. Stay socially distanced. The worst in America is yet to come, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong about that. But just keep your head high. Like Dr. Fauci said, right? Help's on the way. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And I also want to say, just like, if you guys, everybody's on Facebook, right? Whether you want to admit it or not, right? Everybody's on Facebook. There's a Mark Zuckerberg, Anthony Fauci in the United States, one of our lead doctors here, who knows what he's talking about. They did an hour-long thing 2 days ago, and I would really encourage you guys to spend an hour listening to it. You really understand like what mRNA is if you don't, what the vaccine will do. It's not going to bind with your DNA, right? Like why it works. There's no efflorescence, there's no nanobots. They're not miniaturizing Bill Gates and George Soros and sticking them in you, right? Like, you got a choice here, guys, right? You're going to have a novel virus that may eat you alive, right? Or you can take a shot or two from the world's leading scientists, right? This thing can be over, right? I want to get back to going to conferences. I want to get back to going to Seattle, get back to San Francisco,
I know.
Get back to Europe, get back to Asia, get back to New Delhi, right? Get back to Chennai, right? I need some Kashmir pulao biryani, right?
Back to being humans who like to connect in person.
Yeah. And so let's all just do the right and smart things, which includes getting free Squark and trying it out and sticking with Anil because he knows what he's talking about.
Hey, this is the time to try out new stuff while sitting at home. Try Squark, learn something new, Optisant Academy, go take free classes, join these sessions. We do them every Thursday and, make the best use of this time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I really appreciate you having me on and getting to tell everybody about the brand and what I've been up to. I'm sure there's probably some of the old characters in the industry peeping into this, I would imagine, and wondering what are you doing over there. So all you guys should get Squark, right? I invented this because we invented it. The team invented it because this is what the doctor ordered for analytics, right? So take your medicine and call me in the morning.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, Judah.
Thanks, Anil.
And thank you guys. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them and make sure to like the video here. So
yeah, also look for Squark on YouTube and follow us. We just put the site up and I got to get to 100 subscribers. So Squark on YouTube. Then I can change my URL. So just like it or subscribe.
I will go ahead and like that too. So you guys heard that. All right, cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Anil.
Bye.